Alright, in this video we're going to start solving quadratic equations. Now we've done this a little bit already, but we're going to spend the next 2 weeks learning how to solve using different methods, and really quickly I'm going to talk about all 4 methods, or at least list them. Okay, there are 4 different ways, or 4 basic ways to solve quadratic equations. The first method is graphing. We have already solved by graphing right before spring break. I'm not going to go over that today. Our second method is by factoring. That should look familiar. We did that right before we left for spring break. We only factored though. We didn't solve equations by factoring, so we're going to take that next step up in this video. The third method, which is what you'll do later in the week, is called completing the square. Completing the square, I mean, all 4 of these methods are ones you'll have to use in geometry and algebra 2, but completing the square is one you'll definitely see in algebra 2, and I would say probably the trickiest of the 4 methods, so you really want to pay attention when we get to that one. And then finally, method 4, the quadratic formula. You have probably heard of this before, but probably have never used it. We'll cover that last. All right, so just to be clear, our 4 methods: graphing, factoring, completing the square, quadratic formula. But today we're talking about factoring. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 4 examples. I'm going to run through these pretty quickly. I don't want you to spend all day watching this video. We are not going to work in our purple books today, but with completing the square later this week, I think we will be in our books some. So just make sure you have that. Okay, let's solve this example 1. We are solving by factoring. Okay, example 1. Your directions are to solve this equation. First thing to know is this is a quadratic equation because of the square right here. All right, and we have 3 terms: the square term, the constant term, and the linear term. What we did before spring break was we factored quadratic expressions where all 3 of those pieces were together. Right now they're separate. I have 2 of the terms on one side, I have 1 on the right side. My job first is to get all of the terms on one side. And I think the easiest way to do that is to move this term to that side, and we're going to do that by adding 14x to both sides. You can move these 2 pieces to the right side instead, but I just think this is a little bit simpler. If I do that math, I'm going to get x squared plus 14x plus 48 equals 0. All right, I have all 3 terms on one side, and now I'm going to factor the left side of the equation. I'm going to find 2 numbers that multiply to give me 48, but also add to give me 14. And those numbers are 6 and 8. Well, I have those. I'm going to rewrite this expression as x plus 6 times quantity x plus 8 equals 0. So notice I haven't changed the value of the equation, I just made it look different. And now we do something we have done in the past where I look at both factors I say, what value of x can I plug in for, let's start with this factor. What value can I plug in for x to make that piece equal 0? And that is x equals -6. I do the same thing for this factor, and -8. If I plug that in for x would make that piece 0. But if you want to be a little more concrete, and we'll do this on the next example, just go ahead and set both of those factors equal to 0 on their own and solve those small equations. If I solve these, I get x equals -6. And on this one, I get x equals -8. And those are my solutions. All right. Again, you can always check by taking these solutions and plugging them back into the original equation. And you should get a true statement for both. All right. Let's call this example 2. What I want you to do is, once I write this down, I want you to pause the video after you've written it down. And I want you to try to solve this on your own. This one is pretty similar to our first example. Take a few minutes, try to do this, and then you can check it. Okay, hopefully you took a chance to try that. I'm going to try this problem. First step, let's move the 30 to the other side. And that gives me x squared plus x minus 30 equals 0. That is step 1. Step 2, just like on the previous example, I'm going to find two numbers that multiply to give me -30, but also add to give me a +1, and that is going to be +6 and -5. Okay, this is one where one of our factors is negative. So I have x plus 6 in parentheses times quantity x minus 5 equals 0. I set both pieces equal to 0 on their own. This isn't required, but if it helps you, this is called the zero product property. And I get x equals -6. And I get x equals +5 as my solutions. All right. So two pretty basic examples there. These next two are going to be a little bit more challenging. Let's solve this example 3. And remember, make sure you're writing these down and work on them as we go. I have 2x squared plus 19x equals -24. All right. So this one's more challenging because we have a number that's not 1 in front of the x squared. If you remember, that's going to change how we factor our expression. But the first step is no different than what we've done previously. I'm going to add 24 to both sides to get everything on one side. So I have 2x squared plus 19x plus 24 equals 0. All right. What you think for a second? What should you try to do at this point? What you need to try to do is pull out a greatest common factor. So I see, okay, I want to try to get rid of this 2 if I can. I try to divide this by 2. 19 divided by 2 is a decimal, so it doesn't work. So once I try that, I'm going to go ahead and do the factoring by grouping process. First step, 2 times 24 gives us 48. My next job, find two numbers that multiply to give me 48, but add to give me 19. Numbers are 16 and 3. Next step, rewrite the original expression, the original equation. But rewrite it just a little bit differently. So notice I rewrote 19x. Let me change colors here. 19x. I rewrote it as 16x plus 3x. So I haven't changed anything in terms of equivalence. These are the exact same equations. They just look different. All right. Once I have them, I'm going to split this down the middle. I'm going to find two numbers. I'm sorry. I'm going to find a greatest common factor for these two numbers. And I believe the greatest common factor for those will be 2x. What I put in parentheses is what I get after I divide. 2x squared by 2x. 2x squared divided by 2x is just x. And then 16x divided by 2x is 8. You can always check your factoring by distributing it back out like this, and it should be the exact same thing as we had up top. I get an x plus 8 on the left side. If you remember, I have to have the same thing on the right side. And to get that to show up, I have to divide both 3x and 24 by 3. Make sure you put your sign in the middle. That's a plus there. All right, I'm hoping that looks a little bit familiar from our discussions in class, but if not, you have your yellow worksheets. Go back through those and study them. All right, next to last step, we combine these two, put them inside their own set of parentheses. So I'm going to have 2x plus 3 times whatever I had in the parentheses already, which is quantity x plus 8, all equals 0. Remember, this is an equation, so that equals 0 technically needs to keep sliding down as we go through the problem. All right, once I have it factored, I do the same thing as before. And again, this is one where I would go ahead and set both pieces equal to 0. All right, especially that 2x plus 3, because that's not a super simple one to find in your head. This one is obviously x equals negative 8. This one I might have to do a little bit more work on the 2x plus 3. So I would subtract 3 from both sides. That gives me 2x equals negative 3. And then to get rid of this 2 here, I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. And so x equals negative 3 over 2. So my solutions. X equals negative 3 over 2, or you can write negative 1.5 and negative 8. I want to reiterate, we will not always get two solutions. Okay, our first three examples, we've gotten 2, but just remember that we can get one solution. Sometimes we can get no solutions. We'll try to do multiple types of those as we go. Okay, last example for this video. Call this example 4. I want you to stop this video once I write the problem down, and I want you to try to do this on your own. Then you push play to check to see if you got it right. Okay, go ahead and pause the video, see if you can figure this one out. We are solving for x. Okay. Now here, it would probably seem easiest to subtract 3x squared from both sides because that's the only term I really need to move. That's the most efficient. But I personally like to leave the x squared term positive. If I move it to the other side, it would become negative. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 22x to both sides and subtract 16 from both sides. But that part is completely up to you. So what I should have is 3x squared plus 22x minus 16 equals 0. Those are both 0. All right. I try to pull out a 3. It won't work because 3 doesn't go into 22 or negative 16. So I go ahead and I factor by grouping. 3 times negative 16 is negative 48. The two numbers that multiply to give me negative 48, but add to be 22, are 24 and negative 2. I rewrite the original expression. I'm going to put the 24 first. I'm sorry, the 24x, and then the negative 2x. Next, if you remember, these can go in either order. It doesn't matter. I can put the negative 2x first, then the 24. But I think this way is probably the best because 3 and 24 have a common factor of 3, and then negative 2 and negative 16 have a common factor of 2 or negative 2. But anyway, split it down the middle. For the 3x squared and the 24x, I can pull out a 3x from both. That will give me x plus 8 on the inside. I have an x plus 8 on the parentheses, or inside the parentheses on the right side. To get that to happen, I pull out a negative 2. Put these terms together inside their own set of parentheses, times what's already inside of the parentheses. And remember, and I did it again, I apologize, I need to be putting equal 0 all the way down because this is an equation. Once I have that, zero product property, set both of these pieces equal to 0 on their own, and solve those small equations. If I solve this one, I get x equals 2 over 3. If I solve this one, I get x equals 8. Excuse me, negative 8. And those are my solutions. That's factor solving by factoring. Like I said, this is something that we've really already done. We're just taking it one step further. I'll have a homework assignment posted soon.